Good morning and welcome to our worship reflection for the week. We are in the second chapter of the book of Ruth, and I'm coming to you today from the field right next to church. I thought this would be an appropriate setting for the video today, since the scenes in our reading for this week are in a field as the harvest is taking place around Bethlehem. So you'll remember from last week that Naomi and Ruth have returned to Bethlehem. They've had a decade of tragedy and heartache and loss. And now these women who are vulnerable and poor they need to survive and they need to eat. And so Ruth is going to go out into the field and gather up some grain as part of the harvest. And here's how this works in this culture. In the Bible, God sets forth this vision for people to take care of the poor and the needy, to look out for the widow and the orphan. And what he instructs through the biblical writings, through the biblical story, is for farmers to always leave some of their harvest behind, to not harvest right up to the edges. If they are harvesting grain and drop some, they're not supposed to pick it up. They're supposed to leave it there so that those who are vulnerable and poor can come behind and use this as their food, as their sustenance. And so this is what Ruth is planning on doing. And as it happens, is what we read in the story, as it happens, she finds herself in the field of Boaz. Now, we're clued in at the beginning of this reading, but Ruth does not know that Boaz is a relative of Naomi. And so he has a special obligation to her as family, and he goes above and beyond with this obligation. He provides for her an abundance of hospitality and graciousness as he invites her to eat with him. He provides protection for her. He instructs her to follow along with his own servants, his own household, to glean these leftovers. And Ruth is overwhelmed by his kindness, and it really becomes a turning point in the story for her and for Naomi. See, when she goes home that night and she explains what has happened, Naomi realizes that she's landed in this field of her relative, but she also hears of all this kindness and this generosity that Boaz has shown. And how she understands that is that God is working through Boaz. If we remember from last week's story at the end of the chapter, Naomi is bitter and she feels God has emptied her life, that he has brought calamity upon her, and feels that God has forsaken her. But now what we read is that because of Boaz's kindness, Naomi understands that God has not forsaken her, that God is still alive and working in her life. And I think she starts to see some hope that maybe this isn't the end for her, that maybe she does have a future. And it's such a great reminder to us is that we don't always know the impact of our kindness, that when we live out our faith and we live out God's command for us to love our neighbor, of the effect that can have on people and how they can see hope and see God working through us. So I hope you are enjoying as we go through this book of Ruth and think about the story and the setting, and I invite you to go out this week and spread some hope. Have a great day. Thanks.